This morning in breaking news, Brett Adcock, CEO of Figure Robotics, dropped a mind-blowing demo showing that their Figure 1 robot can now do end-to-end AI training. This demo of the bot, now able to make coffee, is just one of many applications that they are promising the bot can do. Today, we're going to review the major progress Figure's accomplishing, including video and post by Brett showing how he himself is shocked that the rate-limiting step is really not going to be the brains as we all assume. Today, we have Scott Walter joining us. He is a two-time robotics co-founder. We've been doing many videos, and so we needed to bring him in right now to tell us exactly what's going on. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, Herbert. I can't believe I'm back on so soon after we just made the video about Aloha, which also was sort of breaking news. And once again, you've kind of caught me on the move here. I'm in snowy Zermatt in Switzerland. And last night when I went to bed, there was no news. Everything was fine. Then I could hear my phone making some notifications. And then when I get up, I saw the original post from Brett saying that there's been kind of a breakthrough, more news later. And I'm like, uh-oh, something's going to be coming. Spent the day skiing. And of course, as soon as I come back, then I'm seeing everyone's reposted that figure video. So much so, I was like, there's no point in me reposting it because I know all my followers have seen it 10 times already. And it is very interesting. It's worth getting into. It's also worth contrasting with what was going on with Aloha. And the other thing I noticed is that I then checked my calendar and I'm like, I know 2024 is supposed to be the year of AI, but it's only the 7th of January. Okay. Yeah. Most of us have not even got over our New Year's Eve hangover yet. And already we've been hit with a couple new developments coming in the AI world. And I wonder, do they know that there's like other news about to hit next week and the week after, and they got to get it out before all the others kind of trump them? So
that's exactly what's
happening.
Here we
go. It's an exciting year already.
Go.
Only the first week, and already we've had to go ahead and sort of discuss these new developments.
Okay. No, you're great way to introduce that. So we're going to show later as well what you're talking about. We just dropped the video on that this morning called Mobile Aloha. That's Google's 3 Stanford researchers showing that you can just demo 50 times a task and the bot can learn it on its own and do it autonomously. So this is the year of embodied AI. So let's talk about Brett Adcock and Figure. Figure Robotics is one of our favorite robots. There's many out there that are fantastic, but this was one that we kept a close eye on. So Brett Adcock basically was out here just yesterday. He posted this on X saying, "We just had an AI breakthrough in our lab. Robotics is about to have its chat GPT moment, and that moment is happening tomorrow." So this is pretty lofty statements, got everybody excited. This is what we've been all waiting for, but it's an AI breakthrough, not just the hardware. And so he said that Figure 1 has learned to make coffee. Our AI learned this after watching humans make coffee, just showing it how to do it through video and watching it, and the robot was able to then do it. This is end-to-end AI. Our neural networks are taking video in, trajectories out. And then he says, follow up later, he said, why is this important? The reason why this is so groundbreaking is if you can get the human data from an application, let's say making coffee, folding laundry, warehouse work, you can then train an AI system end-to-end on Figure 1. There is a path to scale to every use case. And when the fleet expands, further data is collected from the robot fleet, retrained, and the robot achieves even better performance. And of course, as we know, one robot learns it, everybody learns it. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video and we can watch this and you can tell us what we're watching here.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if the sound is on, but at one point he asked
Can you make me a cup of coffee?
Yes. So there's probably an LLM inside to let it know that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do here. This is just putting the coffee maker and stuff, but the instruction to go ahead and do it. And you can see with the manipulation, finding the pod, putting it in there, closing it, and then it seems to know to also hit the start button.
Yeah, I can't hear you very well. I think you need to speak louder.
Okay, and so what we can see is that it's doing really quite well here at being able to take the pod, insert the pod, and then it knows, of course, the next step, the final step, is to go ahead and hit the start button. And then at this point, it must be going into some sort of idle position to let the operator know that it's probably completed the task.
Thanks.
Now, it may not seem like very much was going on, but it is actually, I think, a pretty big development. And I'm glad they sort of showed it to us, let's say, a lot earlier rather than coming up with a lot more things that might seem more whiz bangy. But we'll kind of get into how this was taught and why that seems to be pretty much a big thing. The other thing we're noticing is that the AI seems to be able to correct itself as it attempts to put the pod in there. I mean, how many of us, sometimes when we try to put the pod in there, a coffee maker, sometimes we get it misaligned as well, and we have to go and make a corrective action. So to see that it's able to do that as well as complete the task is very good. But we need to back up for a second here and talk about how the task was taught in the first place. So the video that we dropped just this morning talking about Aloha was talking about a system that was set up to be able to do a lot of training of a robotic system that is sort of human-like. Let's say it's mobile, has two arms, but more or less using teleoperation, where all the tasks are taught from the robot's point of view. So the robot is seeing everything. And kind of the big breakthrough there is they said, well, in as few as 50 training tasks, in some cases, I think even a little bit less than that, but in around 50 training tasks, the robot was pretty good at being able to replicate the task that was taught with a certain amount of variance in it. So that was kind of a big deal about what was going on with Aloha. But now this is taken a step further. So we've talked about how the robots were going to be trained, the neural nets were going to be trained in the past. Part of it was going to be a certain amount of simulation data. Others was going to be some sort of telerobotic simulation. And then it seemed like Google was hinting that there was a possibility of being able to use video input, but it wasn't clear whether it was videos of watching other things or other people doing a task, or whether it actually was, a video of the human doing it. So was it from the point of view of the robot, or was there a different point of view? So in this case, they're saying the robot just watched people making a cup of coffee, and they probably associated, they probably said, hey, figure one, I'm making a cup of coffee. Watch me, I'm making a cup of coffee. And it just observed it and observed it. And somehow from that, it was able to intuit. It's like, oh, look what's going on here. Look, they're using two different hands. Oh, I've got two hands. I've got a left hand, I've got a right hand. Pick one up over here, lift it up. It seems to have learned all of that stuff just by observing someone else. And that is very different than what we have sort of seen, that we were kind of hoping that was going to be the way it would be done, that you would tell Optimus or Figure, say, hey, watch me, what I'm doing right here on the shop floor, study these things. The big thing about this is really working. It means the training data is already out there. So pretty much what Aloha was showing was a breakthrough. It's like, oh, look, we've got a low cost system that will allow us to be able to get lots of training data for everyone who wants to do this. And now it's like, you know what? The data sets, they exist. There are things called training manuals out there already. There are plenty of YouTube videos showing all sorts of things. You and I know that whenever we have to fix something around the house in the car, we just like search something on YouTube and say, okay, how do I do this? How do I change the battery in my car? And it will show you the steps. So that means, in principle, there are lots of training data already available if you now have an AI breakthrough on this. Now, the interesting thing is that Brett was sort of mentioning over the past month or so that things have been moving very, very quickly. And that with regarding this, I think there was one other post that he did, a reply to his own post, where someone asked about it. And he said they tried something that turned out to be very simple, that they didn't expect it to work. Now, if that sounds like a little bit deja vu, Elon said something like that last spring regarding the V12. They also got a breakthrough, and it turned out to be a lot simpler than they thought. So it probably was, can't work that way. There's no way. That's too easy. The expectation doesn't work. They try it, and suddenly it's like, wow, we're getting results much, much quicker than we expected. And again, the V12 was end to end. And what they're showing here with the figure one is also end to end training in the neural nets. But the fact that it's able to study something else, to me, that's remarkable, because it means it somehow has a sense of what its body is and is able to then kind of put itself into the frame of reference of another individual, to study that individual and to understand that, hey, what this person has, I also have similar appendages. And by studying what that person's doing, it's then able to figure it out. So I think the most interesting thing would be to go up to the figure, and they probably already done something like this, is like, kind of put your hands out and like, do this and see if it, oh, you just want to go ahead and put that digit out. They've probably done all sorts of things like that. So it has an idea of not only its proprioception, but how it is then able to transfer its proprioception into another being, another individual, and study and learn from that. So that's why I think it's exciting. It may look,
Yeah.
oh, come on, it's really simple. And in some ways, you can say, hey, he didn't even put the coffee cup underneath the maker. The operator had to go ahead and kind of do that already. It doesn't matter. They saw something that shocked them, and they could have sat on this, like I say, for a month or two and not announced anything. And they just decided, you know what? Let's just go ahead and show it. And I think there is something big here, and it was worth it. And again, here we are, the 7th of January. Yeah,
Yeah.
and,
I
and
think
we've got another 51 weeks to go.
what's exciting is this is not the only company that's doing this, right? So we've seen
Hmm.
Tesla show the Gen 2 bot. They showed that the previous demo before that, they showed that they can show it videos and they can train it. And
Hmm.
remember that one shot where the engineer went like this, and he was so excited because it was an aha moment showing that the bot can
Yes.
actually figure things out on its own. So the AI is not coded; it just sees a video and is able to replicate it, but not just replicate exactly what happened, actually understands that if that coffee cup was a little slightly off, it needs to move it in. Just like the Tesla bot showed that when they were trying to move blocks, if the box flipped over, it knew by itself to flip it back and then move it again. All that complex. Now you kept referring to the Aloha, Mobile Aloha. So you and I just dropped a
Hmm.
video this morning on that. But I showed a little clip of what that is. But basically, it's three Stanford grad students showing that a very simple two pinch your hand can do so many different tasks. Now, much of it's teleoperated. The human is actually there doing the actual, controlling those hands. But after they do 50 of those demos, then that robot they've shown can do it autonomously. So this idea of embodied AI is happening and it's happening quickly. I'll share some more videos of both Aloha and of course Figure, but let's set the stage of let's go back to Figure and what they're saying. This is Brett Adcock. He's the CEO, and he basically, what is it? They're a 70 employee company, Scott, right? 70 employees.
Yes. Hmm.
Small, but you and I and many others have been talking about they're very likely to have partnered, we think, with Google DeepMind. We'll find out, which is, by the way,
I guess.
the Mobile OA is also Google. They've got that partnership. So this is what Brad said a week ago. He said, in 2022, I was hoping AI-powered humanoid robots were possible. In 2024, I know it's possible. Just time now. These robots are going to give rise to the greatest economic growth in human history. This is the year that everything changes. And so you and I do these shows, we make some statements, people jump all over us saying, oh my God, bots are not going to, it's going to take years. You've got the CEO. Yeah, okay, you can counter and say maybe he's just marketing, maybe he's just saying stuff, but we are seeing demos being dropped, like you said, on a weekly basis at this point. He says it's critical humanoids are ready pre-AGI. Okay, you can I now I could talk about that. The last thing we
Hmm.
need is AGI bossing around humans to do work. If you walk in a factory today, it's computers telling humans what work to do. And then, so embodied AI is critical, and that's what he's working on. That's what Tesla's working on. Now, watch this. This is what's this incredible information. He then tweeted this out. Also, he said he's looking for to hire people, and he said, "Look, you should consider joining our company because look, you can deploy robots at scale to signed Fortune 50 companies generating training data." So Figure has already have agreements with Fortune 50 companies to give them training data. That is mind blowing that he's announced that. Work on the latest AI research problems and test real time embodied agents. Embodied agents is the new greatest thing. In fact, some people think it's bigger than this generative language AI. And then he says, our
Hmm.
AI team are people from X, Google, DeepMind, Cruise, Amazon, Stanford Robotics Lab. We design all our robot hardware so we can control our destiny. We'll improve the hardware. What do you think, Scott?
Yes. So if we recall, going back, was it just a few weeks ago, he had said that he thought they really wouldn't have everything going until the end of the decade, which is sort of where we've been because we were very kind of cautious on how quickly the development is going to be in the AI because we've all felt the AI is what's going to be living it. The hardware can still improve, but the hardware clearly is good enough because we can see what you can do with the Aloha platform, which is the simplest hardware possible, especially the hands, and it has way more dexterity than we ever thought would be possible with that kind of kinematic setup. Now we've been able to see that, well, you take something that really has real human hands. And again, this is something that Hans Nelson pointed out, is that before we saw the hands on the figure robot in the previous video, but we did not actually see it in use. So now we know the hands are not really just gloves that are sitting there; they actually function. And we've also noticed that they have three knuckles versus the two knuckles that are in the Tesla bot hand. So Brett himself was also a little bit skeptical on what these timelines were, as far as being faster than that. It's like end of the decade. Now he said that it's going to be coming a lot sooner. And with this, it's kind of showing us that this really is going to be the year of embodied AI. It's not just Brett saying this. There are a lot of other people out in the AI space that are beginning to adjust their time frame, saying some things they're seeing some things that are telling them it's going to be coming a lot faster than a lot of people expected. There definitely are some breakthroughs. Yes, there are some people that are skeptical and not quite so sure about what's going on, but they are we're seeing the signs that something like this is moving and is moving very quickly. The thing about this, it's very, very interesting, is he said it took 10 hours of training. And I'm not sure what that 10 hours of training is, whether it was just watching people around the coffee machine for 10 hours, or whether it was like doing some of this training and then actually running the compute, because I don't know how they are doing that and what access they have as far as compute clusters, where that's coming from. So that's like the biggest question I have, and how quickly they're able to do it, and whether you could just start showing it any task and it really learns it that quickly, or is it like, oh, FSD, we collect lots and lots of the videos, we got to crunch through the whole thing for a couple of weeks. If we have Dojo, maybe it's able to do it in the weekend or something like that, and then we could update the fleet. Or is that something being done more locally? That would be rather interesting to know what's going on there. The other things that Brett also kind of pointed out is that you know Fortune 50 companies. Okay, not 500, the Fortune 50. These are the top 50 companies in the country. And that means they are taking this seriously. They realize that this is very important and that they cannot sleep on it. So I'm not surprised that Fortune 50 companies are involved, and is a good chance that they reached out to him rather than the other way around, or a little bit backwards, like we've got to start studying this stuff because this is very, very important. And he also mentioned that it was more a recruiting video in many sense here, that come join our team. They have a lot of positions for robot trainers, as well as hardware and technicians, like doing a George Hotz here, and like saying, hey, Elon or Brett, if one of you wants to hire me as an intern for 6 months, I'll gladly do it. Just kind of show up and then just kind of go around and figure out what's going on, because I'd love to see what's going on, just because of the curious nature of what they're doing would absolutely intrigue me. And I would love to know something like that. And then I think the other thing that he mentioned in there is that we have to start thinking about the fact that the robots are coming, before they do. It's very, very important. And this is something we have been trying to do within the community, to start looking at the models of what does a humanoid robot actually mean. What are the financial models you're putting together? How does it affect your bottom line? And then, of course, the other question is like, well, wait a minute. If it's replacing workers, what do we do about those workers? And everyone's discussed what are the different ways of being able to do it. We know Elon has brought up the idea of universal basic income, which some people say, yeah, that might be a way to do it. Others don't like the idea of that, and they're trying to figure out what way are you doing. But what we need to have is a discussion of what it is. And again, one of our good friends, Cern Basher, who's been putting together all kinds of great models out there, yesterday put out another one kind of looking at a third way versus like, UBI or no UBI, or maybe another way of looking at worker retraining and be able to do that. So I absolutely agree that this is something we need to talk about now. AI is very important. And in a week from now, there's a large economic forum going on in Davos in Switzerland, which happens every year, where they're leaders from around the world are trying to figure out what's the economy going to look like in the coming year or years, what good economic policy should be. If they're not talking about AI, and especially if they're not talking about humanoid robotics, they are missing the boat.
Yep.
They are not really kind of thinking about what's going on, because in many cases these discussions that Brett talked about, it's like, we got to start talking about it now. It's like, well, are we just going to talk about it within our community? I think it must be a much broader conversation,
Yeah.
and I invite that. And we are kind of looking forward for that, because I think right now we need the exchange of ideas, not like, oh, that's a bad idea, or I completely disagree with you. It's like, let's start talking about this and see if we can come to some kind of consensus of what is the future going to look like with humanoid robots, because we are going to start seeing it this year. I am convinced that
Yep.
it's not going to be displacing lots of workers, but we are going to
No.
see that they are
Yep.
showing up in places and they are doing jobs, and it's only going, we're going to be at the bottom of that S curve, and then suddenly it's going to surprise everyone when it goes like that.
Yeah, so
Don't be
it
surprised.
is, yeah, it's inevitable at this point. As you can see, the progress happening so quickly. I want to set the stage for a few people, and then I want to get right into the fingers and comparing it against the Tesla bot, and then we'll also go
Mhm,
back to comparing it to Aloha, Google's Mobile Aloha, because we brought it up a few times this in this show. So the first is that countries like China has made a statement, and they basically said that by 2027 they want to be the leader in humanoid robots.
mhm.
So as a country, they are going to implement policies. They're going to implement money. They're going to try to do everything to support mobile humanoid robots. Companies, as you can see here, this is the first indication that Fortune 50 companies have partnered with a robotics company. It is no doubt, but this is the first time we heard about it. Guaranteed, who's going to be the number one company that people are going to partner with? Tesla, for sure. Now,
Mhm.
but there's going to be many winners, and you and I have said many times before that there's not going to be any loser. Any company creating a humanoid robot will be very, very successful. They'll have the market will not bump into each other for maybe even a decade. And like the market is so large, anybody who makes any kind of robot will be able to sell this. Now, what's interesting about Tesla bot versus this figure, I want to just get your thought on it again. Let's watch again this clip here, right? So that you've got this, the hands, right? So we know now that the hands can move. That's a big deal. But if you look at the hands, just look at the movement of the hands. Yes, it can move, but it's still very um, it's there, it's happening, but it seems like it's only two knuckles that can move.
No, it looks like three knuckles. I was looking at it pretty closely, and Hans kind of came to the same conclusion. Is I think the knuckle at the end is able to move a little bit. It's very subtle. It's a little bit, and I was trying to tell if it's there. So in some cases it's there, but because it's tendon based, it's not like it just kind of comes around. It's when you really curl it down, you might get that final curl that's in there. And this is a big question of whether you need to have two knuckles or three knuckles. And it may be that it's you can do fine just with two knuckles. You might be able to do everything that, adding the third knuckle maybe gets you something a bit more human like, a little bit closer. But for the most
Yeah.
cases, we don't have that much control of the end of that knuckle. I mean, it's like
Okay.
we can make our finger curl, everything goes around. But that's an additional part, that's an additional wear point, that's an additional point of failure, putting an additional knuckle. So that is the rationale between Optimus, is they're saying we don't really need the knuckle.
It's
It'll
using
be
the
cheaper
pinky,
to
by the way.
produce. Right. Yes,
It's using the pinky to
that's
pop it
interesting.
in, which is pretty cool, eh? Look at that. It used the pinky to
Yeah,
pop it
yeah.
in because it's the
So it knows its
closest finger
whole
there.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there are some
So
things I would like to see them clean up. If you look in that right now, um, that's the one part of the design I don't like is the whole lower arm, especially the wrist.
mm,
It's way too
yeah,
bulky, and it's a really huge servo here for that
it's
last movement.
bulky.
It's like this little hand movement that you don't need much of. It's
Mhm.
overkill. And if you look at the whole forearm, man, I mean, it's like bodybuilders would love to have forearms that look like that. It's a bit big, and it does need to be smaller, because you think about it, if you can be reaching into cabinets and stuff like that, you don't want to have this bulky thing. I mean, we all know what it's like. Sometimes our watch gets caught on something, but we don't have watches that stick up 2 inches. You want to get that slimmed down. So that is something I think they need to clean up. I love the waist. I mean, we looked at the waist before, and I'm like, oh, that waist is pretty good. I can't quite tell what's going on the shoulder, because they have the epaulets that are over there that seem to be kind of hiding it pretty well. So I suspect they have
Mhm.
kind of something standard there. But again, everyone thought the AI was going to be the issue, and not the hardware right away. And it might be that they need to start cleaning up the hardware a little bit to be able to get the full implementation that you want. Because you're definitely not going to go to scale with the risk that they have. No way,
Yeah.
no way. That's going to have to
Gotcha.
change.
Yeah. So I just wanted to compare it to the humanoid Tesla bot Gen 2,
Hmm.
which is a
Hmm.
lot cleaner, lot sleeker, but the
Hmm.
fingers seem to be a lot, just a little bit, maybe just a little bit. Obviously, these guys need to catch up, but it's like I just want to point
Yes.
out that Tesla Bot Gen 2 seems to be a little bit more finger dexterity. A little bit
Yes,
better.
it might be there. Yeah, I would think because they've had a chance to clean it up. In the first Gen 1, the fingers maybe get a little bit sticky sometimes and getting them
Mhm.
to open up and close. And so they learned from that on how to improve that design. This is figure one. I'm sure they've learned a lot of issues from this hand, and that's not going to be their final hand design. They're going to clean it up. The main thing they've realized that wow, we actually know how to train this thing, and we will be able to make improvements on that. I am absolutely sure. Um, the and so yeah, before we were not really able to see what the hand was able to do. We just got like some some teasers, and that was the one part that I think is really interesting. What they've done there in the torso, beautiful design there. They're going to have to probably do something with it. So they have a pretty big backpack there. So
Yeah, let me
they're
just
probably going
take
to
a
have
look
to
at
do
that
something with
backpack. There's a massive backpack there. You see that? Now, is
it.
it
Mhm.
still here in this demo? This is the
Yes,
latest. It
yes,
still
yes,
has
yes,
it.
yes, yeah. It's
Okay.
still there. It's still there. So
Okay.
now, if that backpack is batteries, I am impressed with its stability. The fact it doesn't fall over. Um,
Hmm.
or maybe the batteries are more in the torso because to me that seems to be a pretty heavy backpack, and to be able to stand there and not fall over with that. So it could be that it's just compute in there, and a lot of empty space, or maybe it's not quite that heavy. But if that is a battery pack, that certainly seems to be pretty massive.
I guess the whole point of what we're trying to point out here, the whole point is that there's three things we've been saying every time we do one of these videos. We tell people you got to look at the brain, which is the AI. You got to look
Hmm.
at the hand dexterity, and you're going to look at the humanoid form and its ability to walk. And you can
Hmm.
see
Yes.
that they're making progress in every one of these areas. You can see initially the hands were like this. Now you can actually see it can moving. It's not Tesla seems to be ahead in that space. Then you can see the humanoid
Yes.
form and its ability to walk. These guys still are at Gen 1 that Tesla had with the wire sticking out, the big backpack, but that's going to be fixed. And maybe another 6 months,
Oh
maybe, I
yeah.
don't know, whatever, they'll have that slimmed down and cleaned up. But the
Mhm.
breakthrough today is the AI. So let's talk about Mobile Aloha for those people who have not seen this. So Mobile Aloha is made by three Stanford researchers, and what they've shown is just by training a bot. I guess here's a video of them. You see how there's a human controlling these two
Mhm.
arms,
Mhm.
but you call these things two thumbs. They're not even fingers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Talk
even
about
with
being
just
all thumbs.
fingers, yeah, even with all thumbs, and you can see how this guy can control because of his control. He's controlling it. Okay, so it's not that
Hmm.
impressive. But what now they're showing you is that it can do all this cooking, it can do anything you need it to do. Okay. And now you see it's autonomous because once they've taught you how to do it, in this case, high five was 20 times. In the case of the cleaning the this wiping the wine spill, that was 50 times. Going to the going to the
The
elevator to
elevator.
press the button was 50 times. Once they showed it to do a task 50 times like this, pushing the chairs back 50 times, then the thing can do it on its own. Now watch this. It misses this. Oh, which one? Oh, I thought it missed one.
Hmm.
And then it had to redo it
It
because
may
it
not
missed it.
grab it, but it kind of pushed it from behind as opposed to fully grabbing it. But still, it accomplished the task. Hmm. So
Yeah,
we
I
had
can't
two
remember.
there, and that one
Yeah.
looks like. And then I think in one case it just ended up with one hand. So
Yeah.
more or less did it with one hand. Hmm.
And so then they released this video showing that, okay, this thing can do all these things in a house with just two thumbs.
Hmm.
And now, of course, this is all teleoperated. So it's kind of like a fake video that we're going, oh my God, it can do this. But no, there's a human doing it. But they're saying that any of these tasks that you see, like opening a beer bottle, if I just trained it 50 times, it can then do it autonomously. That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
And then what you
It
were
has.
shocked with is just with the two thumbs, it can do these things. So even folding
Hmm.
laundry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us what you think about
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going in there, grabbing something out of the pack, they were able to, close a zipper, and then later on, they're able to make the bed, which is rather amazing, and even do folding the laundry, which we thought would be pretty complicated. Now, it would be complicated if it was an AI trying to figure this things out. What we're seeing is
Mhm.
that mechanically, it's physically capable of doing tasks like this with something which is extremely simple as far as hand dexterity, so long as you have some very intelligent operator doing it. And now, if that intelligent operator is an AI, that means, whoop, there we have it. It really can do the laundry, not just throw it in there. and not just put it in the dryer, but then take it out of the dryer and literally fold it and put it away. So that's just a question of intelligence. And that might not be the ideal platform for you wanting to have in your house or your apartment. Uh, but it just sort of demonstrates the capability that you do not need to have super exotic hardware to be able to accomplish these tasks. And when you have something which is much closer to the humanoid form, you can imagine, well, it's going to be even easier. Just got to make sure you have the brains. And now it looks like the brains are going to be very, very, very close. Now, I think there's two other points I want to point out that I think in the coffee maker demo, it was pointed out that that is a 1x speed video. That was all real time. So it was not
Wow.
sped up or anything else. So everything you're
Yep.
seeing there is real time. It's not
Mhm.
sped up. That's the first thing. The other thing I want to correct you on is you said countries like China that are talking about having a humanoid um, as a priority, humanoid robots as a priority. It's not countries, it's country. China is the only country that has made a statement like that. And that's a bit worrisome
Well,
that they are the
that's
only
worrisome.
one that no one else is thinking of doing that. And that's why I'm saying it's time for
The
other
US.
countries in this World
Yeah.
Economic Forum to start thinking about that this is going to happen and that it should be probably a priority to start the development of these things and also start thinking what's the impact going to be on society and on the economy and everything else. Because they could say there's like, it's not going to happen. We don't believe it's going to happen. Well, okay, if that's the position you want to take, but it's going to happen. And if
Yeah.
you look in
The
China, there's always another startup. I think just the other day there was yet another video that came out with a company called Kepler, which has something that looks very much like the Optimus Bot. So yet one more company coming out of
Let's
China
take a
that
look
is
at that one
serious
next.
in the space.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that you and Cern Basher has been pointing out, which is a fantastic analysis, which is that if you're a company and you need to today, okay, even if you don't think this is going to be years from now, you need today to strike agreements with any of these bot companies, including Tesla now, because they can only produce so many. And the first factory, the first manufacturing firm, the first company that gets the first bots in place, they're going to have a competitive advantage. Their prices can be lowered and have a margin so high, you know what I mean, that they can really undercut you in whatever product you're competing in against your competitors. So if you are a company not today striking deals with it, and then the same thing, of course, at country level. If you're a country not incenting and
Hmm.
making sure you get access to these bots first, your country could be whatever industry they decide to hit you on. You could lose that industry quickly.
It's going to be two ways. One is that means that country is using it in the production of parts. It's very difficult for you to then be able to be competitive with that. And the other is as your country then decides, hey, we need humanoid bots. Well, you're going to be buying them for that country that you're supposedly competing against. So it really is kind of a dangerous game to completely ignore the fact that the humanoid bots are coming. We can all get into some sort of discussion on whether it's going to be 2024 or whether it's going to be 2034 or when that's going to be, uh, but it's coming. And the best thing is to plan now because there are lots of projects that take a long, long time that governments are willing to invest in now, knowing the results are not going to be for 1 or 2 decades. And this
Yeah.
is one where you need to start laying the groundwork now because it could come very, very quickly.
Okay. So, folks, Scott and I have done maybe 24, 25 videos on robots. We don't just look at Tesla bot, we look at every bot out there. In fact, I have scheduled an interview with Brett Adcock himself. Scott will join me interviewing him to truly understand all these statements he's making, what progress they're truly making, and dive deeper into that. So, watch for that video. And just, want to show this other tweet that he had, this other post he made on X, maybe about a week and a half ago. And this is what he said: the timeline split of AI versus robot hardware has changed. The last 90 days, I've witnessed industry leading AI in our lab running on humanoid hardware, and frankly, it's blown me away. I'm watching robots performing complex tasks entirely with neural nets, AI trained tasks that I didn't think was feasible at the end of this decade. And then he was initially saying that he thought, and most of us did, that the humanoid form factor, the hardware was going to be harder than the AI, as we keep saying. But in fact, we're all being blown away how quickly AI is progressing. So he said, when starting Figure in 2022, I believe we'd have reliable humanoid hardware well in advance of reliable real world neural nets. Basically, I thought training a robot to do household type tasks would size our timeline. This would be the thing that would take longest. My view on this has changed in the last several months. I now feel that we'll likely have reliable AI that can run on hardware around the same time, or slightly before the human hardware is highly reliable and starting volume manufacturing. And the path to delivering reliable robotic hardware seems clear and predictable to me. Give us time, we'll solve it. And you can see it's progressing. And the Figure AI team is running humanoid robots with end-to-end neural nets performing highly complicated dexterous tasks. These tasks are too complicated to do heuristics in C++. And then he basically ends with 2024 will be the year if embodied AI. We'll be demonstrating our embodied AI in 2024. And just like you said, they basically just did it on the first 7 days of January.
I thought, I thought it's like, okay, let's wait till December, and here we are, still the first week of January. And again, that's the post that I was referring to earlier, that he talked about that, and I completely agree with his points. I mean, that was sort of also my frame of reference. It's going to take a little while for the AI, the hardware will get up there. And at first, I think in the past as well, I haven't seen enough of the AI that I know that I can agree that it's coming that fast. I need to see a little bit more proof of that. And based on that, I just say that I don't disagree with any of the points that he made in that. That is really spot on. Absolutely agree. Reading that again for the second or third or maybe 10th time, I think on the very first one, he talked about seeing industry leading AI in their robots.
Hmm.
And then that just sort of hit me in particular. Say, wait a minute. At first, I thought he was referring to that the AI they were doing is industry leading, because everyone says my AI is industry leading. No, I think he's referring to industry leading AI and nets from other sources coming on in
Google.
there that they're now
Yeah.
starting to use. They've got partners that they're working with. That's what that sounds like to me. And maybe I'm reading between the lines.
You're breaking up a little bit, Scott. I think you just said that they have partners, and I don't think you're reading between the lines. They are 70 employees. They don't have a data warehouse. They need to have had a partner. When you saw that they've already signed agreements with Fortune 50 companies with data training, those Fortune 50 companies are unlikely to be factories. They're more likely to be people like Google and Amazon.
Yes, absolutely.
Could be Amazon.
Microsoft,
Yeah.
who knows? Hmm.
Yeah. This is exciting. I mean, obviously, humanoid robots is here, and this is what we just saw. So thank you for doing this breaking news with me this morning. I think we did a good coverage of it, and then we'll do more. So thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate this.
Yeah.
Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you, Herbert. And I'm looking forward to that interview we're going to have with Brett in a couple of weeks. I think that's
Yeah,
going to be great.
and we will interview not only Brett but other CEOs of major robotics companies, including China. We are absolutely watching closely like a hawk all of the activities they're doing as well. So stay tuned on this channel. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.